and Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. It is good to have you with us. Some of you hoped to be with us outdoors tonight, but the threat of rain and other things has made all of us come inside. Our prayers go out to John Salve getting over a sinus infection, but that means we are blessed with Genie Long, and we are always blessed with Hans Grimm. And we thank Mark Sloter and anyone at home who has ever gone through the blessing, joys, and stresses of senior year wants to extend a mazel tov to Mark Sloter and the Sloter family who are streaming our service tonight. His daughter is off to college in a few weeks, but he is here with us in a few months. He is here with us tonight streaming this service, and we wish him mazel tov and congratulations as well. And we welcome Shabbat, so take a deep breath. If you are following in the prayer book, either online at the link that we sent home, or if you've got a hard copy at home, the page number in brackets, page 128, how good, how sweet, Maya Fehayom, this day of Shabbat.
Maya Fehayom, Shabbat Shalom. Maya Fehayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
As we welcome Shabbat, this Maya Fehayom, this beautiful day, as we prepare, we turn to our symbols, the candles, the light of Shabbat, the wine, the sweet taste of Shabbat, the challah, today actually pita chips, but another type of bread. We turn back to 120 and 123, and we look to the blessing over the candles for Shabbat. Yeah, the candles have a little bit of fun with us sometimes. Amen.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious in the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and
continue with the blessing over wine, the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzevanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahavat uvratzon hinkelanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit, ki hu yom tehila lamikra kodesh, Zeker liat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahavat uvratzon hinkaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen.
And as we turn to the blessing over bread, we always have something different every week. But for Genie, we have pita chips. You were all supposed to get these pita chips if you came to our outdoor service. Rest assured, if you join us next week for our first indoor service in over a year, we'll have a bag for you. They'll still be good. So yes, go for it. Or they trick pita chips. You can open out. Oh, you're recovering from...
Yeah, but I don't have quite the wrist strength.
Well, I'll open them for you. It will be my pleasure. Look at that.
Thank you so much.
So I'll open them. Genie will eat them. Those will be our protocols. We join together in the blessing over bread at home. Grab whatever bread you've got, crackers, and we join together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Thank you. And Beth-El, Jeannie's a good sport. She doesn't realize that we've had to do all kinds of things to entertain ourselves over the past year. And so the motzi is one of those ways. Yes, next week, you heard it right. Next week, our temple will be open. Our temple is open, by the way. If you've been hoping to meet with me, bring your mask and make an appointment. Our temple is open for small groups. Beginning next week, we will have indoor services here, following protocols. You know the protocols, signing in or bringing a copy of your card or wearing a mask regardless. All of that will happen next week. And for those who are not yet ready or comfortable or have just gotten used to praying in your pajamas, we will, of course, continue to stream the service. But we will be meeting in person next week. And one difference between this year and next week is we'll be looking at people's faces. I'll be moving between the cameras and the faces down here. And when you have people looking at you, sometimes it'll probably make us a little self-conscious for a little while. We've been praying to an empty room for the last year. So part of having people look at you is it keeps you in check a little. It reminds you that you serve others. Now it's just a camera. Why do I bring up Hod? Why do I bring up humility? Because we are in that period of the counting of the Omer. And before we continue with our Shabbat service, a word about this time that I've spoken about almost every week, this period of counting from Passover, the crossing into freedom, to Shavuot, the giving of our first fruits. This period of the Omer tonight is the 33rd day of the counting of the measure. And while it was originally an agricultural holiday, it has become over time an introspective holiday. We look in ourselves. What used to be a measure of wheat becomes a measure of ourselves. And so there are attributes for each of the 7 weeks. The attribute for this week is Hod, which is humility. And many Jews take time to reflect for a few minutes a day on that attribute of strengthening our humility muscle. I am aware of the irony. Insert your joke here. A rabbi on the bima in front of all, speaking of humility. We're not always known for our humility. I'm aware of the irony. And perhaps that's why, by coincidence, the Torah portion we study this week, this Shabbat, is Emor. The Parsha is the Parsha that speaks to us first of the rules for a priest. The priest who makes the offering on behalf of the Jewish people before God and before the temple. And before the priest can do his job, there are many rules, things that a priest is prohibited from doing, like mourning at a funeral, coming in contact with the dead, being defiled through the rituals that the common people must take place. Except the Torah reminds us that when it comes to the priest's own family, it was always he, is required to defile himself. He must remain pure for the people to fulfill his functions, but he must defile himself in the role of family member. Because in the second part of our Torah portion, we get the rules for Passover, Sukkot, Shavuot, Shabbat, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur, the biblical festivals. And remember that the priest was central to those festivals. What the Jews did then, which we don't do now, is that the priest would accept the offering on behalf of the people presented to God. And yet, as Rabbi Dov Linzer points out, there is a connection between these two different parts of the Torah portion. There is a connection between the high and holy work of the priest and the holidays, because the priest must make himself impure if his family needs him. Rabbi Linzer reminds us in his commentary this week that family comes first, that the holy man may seem above us, but at the end of the day, he is just another father or a child or a sibling, that he is no greater than the others. His task just elevates him. Why these 50 days? Why these 50 days from Passover to Shavuot, from freedom to the receiving of Torah? And that's not the only 7-week period. At Tisha B'Av, with the destruction of the temple, we begin another 7-week journey to Rosh Hashanah. The destruction of the temple, if there was ever a time when Jews would turn to one another and point fingers, the temple was destroyed, it's your fault, it's your fault. In that 7-week period, we are asked once again to turn inward, to look toward the Hebrew month of Elul, to cleanse our souls, to come forward before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, before we face God. What brings all of these together? Hod, humility, the hard truth of telling the truth, of stepping before God. The priest cannot serve the people if he doesn't tell himself and his family the truths. To look into himself and to say, how have I grown distance? How have I come far from God? And our tradition knows that it's hard. That's the only explanation. The only explanation for 2 periods of 49 days. 2 periods of 7 weeks before we can come before God and come before our family. What does this all have to do with the priest and impurity? Truth. We live our lives making choices, making mistakes. Some of them are small and easily forgotten. Some of them are large, and we live with them and live with them. And the longer we live, the farther we get from our families or our communities or God, if we begin to believe that we're as great as we think. And that is why we are blessed with 2 periods, from now to Shavuot and from Tisha B'Av to Rosh Hashanah, to stop telling ourselves lies, to tell ourselves the truth, because only by telling the truth does humility follow. Does the podium on which we lecture others bring us back to a sense of our own failings? And so on this Shabbat, I ask you to take 5 minutes during this week of humility, not to beat yourselves up, but to say for 5 minutes, I'm not going to think any longer about what everyone else has done to me. I'm going to stop thinking about all the perceived injustices when I'm driving, or when I'm working, or when I'm living, or when I'm being a parent, or a child, or a sibling. I'm going to go to that scary place, and I'm going to open the doors that I have locked over the years. And I'm going to remind myself of how I have fallen short. And then with humility, I am going to remind myself I'm not as bad as I think at my worst moments, but I am far from as good as I think on my best. May you do some truth-telling so that you can be better at what you do. May I be a truth-teller so I can be better at what I do. This temple will always be a place for conversation and honesty and bridging the distance. All you have to do to join is to be willing to tell the truth. Page 142. Oh God, bring these angels to us that open us up to each other and to you.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi-melech Malachei Holakim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon.
O God, in our pain we call out to you. You are as near to us as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you, to seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. O God, we come close to you. May we feel your presence as we turn on page 146 to the Baruch.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed.
Page 151. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle as well? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Blessed are you, O God, who loves your people Israel.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malkuto Leolam Vaed.
Join with me on page 155. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work. Whether you are tired or you are rested, let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. We join together in these words sung as we crossed to the land and to freedom. God, watch over us, protect us from disease, from pain, from hurt, from division. Help us with humility to be open to our role in your universe, to love those around us and to realize that they are as broken as us. Watch over us as darkness descends, the darkness of our lives, the darkness in the sky as the sun sets, the darkness of division and pain and misunderstanding, the darkness of faiths that seek to impose their truth on us, the darkness of those with different beliefs and views who think the only way to salvation is to convince us that we are wrong, the darkness of lies told for decades or centuries, the darkness within families who harbor secrets, the darkness of illness, the darkness of fear. Oh God, watch over us. Spread your shelter of peace on us, on our families, on all who are broken. May Shabbat bring to us peace and comfort and love and a break, if only for a moment, from the darkness as we join in the words of Shabbat joy.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי
Oh God, this Shabbat we enter before you with a prayer that our prayers will be pure and true. Oh God, open our lips that our mouths may declare your praise.
Adonai, Sephatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, וחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מחכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים וטופח עולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לאור הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Shabbat. We take a moment of quiet and then we join in a prayer for peace.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Omecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Omecha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lekol ha-shalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lekol ha-shalom. V'tov b'einecha levarek et shemcha Yisrael. V'chol et uv'chol shah b'shlomecha.
Before we turn to the Mishaberach and mention the names of all who are in need of healing, just a word about what happened in Israel last night. Some of you may not even know what I'm referring to. 5 years ago, maybe it's 6, hard to tell, a year before I came here, I was in Israel for an interfaith conference with my dear friend, Rabbi Asher Lopatin. And Asher always has something different for me. Lag BaOmer, this is the Lag BaOmer time of year. The 32nd day of the counting of the Omer, it was yesterday, is also the death of Shimon Bar Yochai, a 2nd century mystic, who some say wrote the Zohar, although some of us trace the Zohar is not from then. And it is, some Jews celebrate at the grave, his grave, because the belief is that a scholar who brought light into the world is a time to celebrate that light. And so we were over in Tiberias at this Christian Catholic study center, and Asher at 10 at night says, let's go to Meron. And being a sort of somewhat spiritual, but more intellectual sort of Reformed Jew, I was never considering going near Meron, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is thought to be buried. But he said, come on, he loaded the car and we began the journey. There were road closures, there were officers turning us around. It took quite a long time to go what is a short distance. Finally, we parked the car, we got on a bus, we got over, we arrived at what really is a pretty modern site, but what made this fascinating was thousands and thousands of ultra-Orthodox, many Hasidic Jews gathering to sing and to dance. Now you need to know this is not a drinking day, unlike some of the other celebrations. Many of the Jews assembled because it was warm, handed out soda and juice and water with the idea that we would have sweet beverages for a sweet day, but none of them were drinking alcohol. You're supposed to be clear when you reflect on the blessings of the Kabbalah. And so Jews were handing out drinks, children were dancing, there were signs all over, here comes the Messiah. And there were, as we got closer and closer, thousands and thousands of Jews. I had an image, I don't know, like of a grave, something thousands of years old. But this was a modern white building with no windows. It's thought he's underneath there. And they were singing and dancing in crowds in a religious fervor, an ecstatic religious experience. I was just taking it in. I still have video as a tourist. But if you can imagine the fervor with these people packed together, praying at his grave for the coming of the Messiah. Yesterday, with so many people so eager to get out of quarantine, because Israel has passed through and now is open, with people so excited to be there and to pray, and by some estimates there were 100,000 people crammed into a place that should not have more than 10,000. There was falling, there was some sort of altercation, people missing, stepping on one of the sets of steps that exit from this area, and at least 45 people were killed, including many children. And so what is normally a day of celebration across Israel, a day that unites, Orthodox Jews are in Meron, secular Jews gather on the beach to make bonfires and sing in camp-like settings, was stopped. It is a day of mourning that united. People canceled parties. People turned toward each other in humility and prayer. Whatever the divisions in Israel will bring tomorrow, today and Sunday they mourn as one. They mourn with chod, with humility. And so, we think not only of those who are sick in our own congregation and community. We think also of those who are broken because they've lost loved ones. We pray also for Israel, where that country is in mourning as one. May we learn from their model. May we learn from the model of grieving as one country and one people at times of mourning. And so we offer our prayers to all the Jews who've lost family members last night, to all who knew one who was killed, and to all who are broken. And we add the names here in our own community of Gordon Brody and Genie Long and Charlotte Fiwas and Maria Schoen, Elliot Blumberg, Katrina Joy Rogers, Eddie Sankary, Mike Fox, Ann Westerman, William Westerman, Robert Bogan, Christopher Long, Karen Delavan, Kevin Delavan, Sherry Goldstein, Ariella Belikoff, Danielle Knust, Dee Steer, Robert Diamond, Bob Schmitz, Mimi Grossman, Fred Boyd, Evelyn Siegel, Brittany Elaine Drake, Judy Cohen, Rabbi Claudio Kogan, Rabbi Rob Nosenchuk, Len Anthony, Randy Koonsman, Ellen Jakowski, Jody Platt, and with any other names in our hearts, with all who are broken and in need of healing, page 371.
Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Mi sheberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
May that time of healing and wholeness come soon. That time removed from brokenness. And so we look to it. We look to it as we look to page 586 as we face the ark for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabach adon hakol v'tet gedula le'yotzer breshit shelo sanu kagoyei haratzot zelo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama shelo sanu chelkenu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam v'ananu korim משתחווים ומוטים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד. ושמו אחד
We take a moment to think of all those we have lost, those at least 45 who passed away in Meron, as well as in this period of Shloshim, the 30-day period of mourning. We mention the names of David Rifkin, husband of Bobsy and father of Laura. We mention the passing of Jeffrey Mark, son-in-law of Karen and Leonard Furstenfeld. We mention the passing this week of Steve Applebaum, cousin of Bill Shore. And we mention those yortzites, the anniversaries of their deaths, marked in this past week and on this Shabbat. And we mention Hannah Antwile, Cohen H. Baker, Mina Block, Sarah Tukin Bloom, Bernard Bodner, Shelley Bovin, Sidney Bushner, Adolph Cohen, Burton Davis, John Factor, Nathan Frankel, Morris B. Freed, Ike Friedman, Nathan Ginsberg, Charlotte Goldman, Dina Gressman, Lucy Hayes, Dora Eckert Herman, Milton L. Corman, Saul K. Lesser, Manfred Rothschild Levy, Rose Eileen Litwin, Benny Lusky, Lisa Micklin, Gershon Myron, Odessa Friedman Plost, Millie Rosenstein, Sam Rosenthal, Mimi Ross, Theodore Safran, Lester Schneeweiss, Pearl Schwartz, Stanley Schwartz, William Schwartz, Meyer Jack Starr, Lynn Sussman, Duncan Thomas Ware, Betty Weltman, James Weltman, Louis Weltman, Douglas Watley, Sophia Williams. And if you are at home with a name that I didn't mention, know our prayers extend to you for comfort and wholeness, as on 598 we join together. Yitgadal v'yitgada shemei Rabba, bi'almal divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chai echon v'yom echon, u'chai d'chol beit Yisrael, b'galal v'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach leolam ulo me'al maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitala, shmei d'kudsha brichu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da miram bi'almal v'imru amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories bless us and be a blessing for us as we bless them through our lives. Amen. Before our closing song, just again a word of thanks for joining us. It is with great excitement that we know we will welcome some of you next Friday night at 6:15. A reminder that you do have to wear a mask. If you forget yours, we'll have some, but don't be that guy or gal, okay? This is strict stuff. Also, a word of thanks. We have a committee, and I need to thank them here because they're not here. It'll be easier when I see their faces, but I want to thank the task force on reopening. They have more to do. They've worked hard. Some of you agree with them. Some of you will say too soon. Some of you will see what kept you waiting. But they volunteered hundreds of hours on the phone to help us get ready. In some synagogues was a rabbi and an educator, an education director and a preschool director, and then they called a bunch of doctors. In our synagogue, this committee, which included past presidents, had doctors and nurses, disease specialists who took time to look at every angle and to consider every option because they love us. And we are grateful to them as volunteers for helping to make thoughtful decisions and get us here. So next week, you can be here with us if you're not ready. The main difference is I'll be saying hello to you, and I'll be saying hello to you and you. And again, you will have to fill out a quick form. So the easy thing to do is to get online and fill it out before then, and then come right on in. We can't wait to welcome you. And so we'll save our Shechianu for next week. Tonight we will simply say thank you, and there's nobody like you, God. There you go. After a year like this, whatever doubts you're having about other human beings, God, we're good, and thank you. And that wasn't quite as eloquent as I had hoped. But we'll turn to page 626, and we'll say it with these ancient words, Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Malkeinu, Ein Moshienu. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Have a wonderful and restful Shabbat.